But there's something about, as leaders, we begin to interact with the presence of God. We begin to go, let's try this. There was a few years ago now, we had about an 18-month period of time where we had a glory cloud show up physically, not spiritually, in the natural, 26 times in 18 months. And it started on I believe it was a Friday night it started, and it was like most people had left the meeting. We have a Friday night service, and there'd be a few people left, and it originated over in the right-hand corner. Don't get on YouTube because there's a lot of videos that actually are anti that. There's one that we put out, so go to watch that one. But it was actually a physical glory cloud. It was actually gold dust was falling in the room. And it wasn't like, I wonder if I'm seeing that. No, because at the end of the night, you could come over here on the stage, and you could wipe your hand on the stage, and the residue would be on your hand. And it was strange. You were like, what is this? And of course, you're like, man, something's in the air conditioning ducts. We just went through the logical, what is happening here? And we begin to realize, oh, this is not glitter in the air conditioning ducts. This is a manifest presence of God showing up in our environment. And then you're like, what do we do? And I remember one night, it was the end of a conference. John and Carol Arnott were here. And it was about 10:30 at night. A couple hundred people were left in the room, and it was an amazing time of ministry. And everybody starts pointing like over here. And so we're praying for people, and everybody's attention's looking up there. And we look up there, and all of a sudden we see this cloud begin to form, literally right up above that screen. And we're like, nobody praying for anybody. Everybody just went over here. And we're just sitting in this thing, and it was one of the most wild experiences. Now, Chris Gore, I've asked permission to share this story, but Chris Gore, he happened to not be at his service yet where the cloud showed up. And he shared the story. He said, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. If that cloud ever shows up in a meeting, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Because he watched it online, heard the stories in staff meeting, and there was a Friday night, my wife was preaching, and Chris was leading the service. And sure enough, the glory cloud showed up during worship, not at the end of the meeting. It showed up like in the middle. It showed up like all across the front here. There's glitter everywhere. And I love Chris is like, I have no idea what to do now. And he's like, Candace, you're the pastor. And Candace is like, I don't get struck by lightning. You do something. But that 18-month period, we had to learn something. This is what I want you to get. There's actually a playfulness to God. There's actually a side to God when we talk about His presence. It's not something that we never interact with. There's actually a playful component of the presence of God. I remember one night we're sitting here and the presence of God is in the room and we're like, what do we do? And no one knew what to do. And someone in the church came up and said, I feel like anybody with cancer should go over in that corner. And we're like, well, that's not going to hurt, so let's just try that. And it wasn't like this, man, I feel like the Lord, it was like, let's just try it. Let's just play with it and see what happened. So we got on the mic and said, anybody who had cancer, go over there and stand over there. And sure enough, a handful of people went over there and we just kind of kept going. Found out one of the ladies that was over there had stage 4 cancer. She went over there. She ended up going home, goes to the doctor, and the doctor said, you don't have cancer anymore. And so here we are, we're learning, just turn aside and stay curious. Turn aside and stay curious. And know this, that God wants to interact with you. He wants to play with you. You want to learn the playfulness of the presence of God. I don't want to challenge you like, well, what if it doesn't work? Then it doesn't work. How many of you have ever led a meeting and God showed up and He said, let's do this, and it totally bombs? And how many of you, it took you a while to have courage to do it again? I want to challenge you. God's like, hey, let's try that again. Nice try, but let's try it again. There's a playfulness to God. If we can get rid of the fear of messing things up and realizing this is when you mess it up, is when you do it with a cocky attitude. But when you come in humble and low and like, God, I'm going to take a risk here. And when God honored it, it's the best thing in the world. Like, oh gosh, that idea of sending someone with cancer over there was brilliant. And there's just playfulness to God. And so in this story, we have Moses who turns aside, and because he was curious, God says, Moses, I have your calling. And now I'm going to fast forward pretty dramatically from Exodus 3 to Exodus chapter 33. And we all, for the most part, know what happened within that. What I'd like to propose to you is that Moses started his relationship with the presence of God. That was what ushered him into this calling in life.